Earlier this week, US President Donald Trump thanked Netanyahu for agreeing to his 20-point Gaza peace plan and warned that Hamas would US would fully back Israel in destroying Hamas if Hamas rejected the deal. But remember, that has not happened because Hamas has now given its nod to release the number of hostages that are currently in the control of Hamas. They're sitting close to over 40 hostages, many of whom are even believed to be dead. But where is this now going to lead the entire conflict in Gaza? Remember, the US president has already outlined the key peace plan points. What are those? Let's break it down for you. Hamas is all set to release the hostages within 72 hours. Remember, the ultimatum was till Sunday, and Hamas has already come up with a nod. Israel is now going to then pull back troops, suspend military operations. So far, Israel has continued to bomb Gaza. Gaza is then going to be demilitarized. Hamas will be disarmed. But remember, Hamas in its statement has not really outlined whether or not they will be disarming. They remain mum on it. But Hamas will have no role in the governance of Gaza, something that Hamas has indicated they want Palestine to be ruled by Palestinians. Israel will then free 250 Palestinians serving life terms, 1,700 others. Israel has already started preparing a list of those Palestinians. There will be resumption of full aid to Gaza if Hamas accepts this deal. So you can expect aid to now reach Gaza very soon. Gaza will be redeveloped for benefit of the residents. Remember, Donald Trump wants to convert it into a Riviera of the Middle East, as he's claimed earlier. International stabilization force will be deployed in Gaza. This is now going to be a bone of contention because Hamas is not interested in having any kind of an international intervention, whether that is United States or, say, even Israel, to remain in Gaza. A political Palestinian panel will be governing Gaza temporarily. That was a suggestion coming in from US. Hamas wants to negotiate over that. The Board of Peace will be headed by Trump to supervise governance panel. So that, of course, remains a bone of contention for Hamas. We'll have to see how the negotiations shape up now. But the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi has welcomed the Gaza peace plan, calling it a comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict and a viable pathway to long-term and sustainable peace, security and development for the Palestinian and Israeli people. Kohina Sharma breaks down the details for you.
This is a big day. We'll see how it all turns out. Very importantly, I look forward to having the hostages come home.
Well, Hamas agrees to Trump, or is it just another talk? Peace ahead of the second anniversary of 7th October, and with the Nobel Peace Prize ceremony coming up on 10th of October, the stakes have never been higher. Now let's try and understand what's happening at the moment. Hamas says it's ready to release all the Israeli hostages, but with conditions. Trump gave Hamas just 3 to 4 days to accept his 20-point peace plan, which calls for disarmament and removing Hamas from Gaza's governance. But only 20 of the 48 hostages are believed to be alive, making this deal extremely time-sensitive also. Now, what is at stake? Since October 2023, over 66,000 people have been killed in Gaza, with 1.9 million displaced so far. Humanitarian aid is blocked and civilians are trapped under bombardment. Trump's plan also promises immediate hostages release, exchange for detained Gazans, and aid delivery, but at the cost of Hamas giving up all of the power. Let's try and understand 3 possible outcomes of this entire situation, which are full peace, partial rejection, and fight back. Let's try and understand the first part, where full implementation of this entire fiasco is going to happen. If Hamas agrees fully, hostages released will be happening in next 72 hours. Aid will flow and temporary ceasefire is likely to happen on the cards. But what is at risk? Well, tensions over the governance or disarmament could flare up later in the region. In case of partial implementation, well, conditional release is going to happen. Ongoing talks on Gaza's future might continue. Hostages will be freed gradually. Selective Israeli strike will continue. But what is at risk in case 2? Well, in this case, civilians will continue to remain in danger and humanitarian crisis will persist. In case of rejection, renewed hostilities is a big possibility. Hamas, if rejects the plan, Trump and Israel already warned of all hell losing. Hostages will remain at risk. Gaza will continue to face more civilian casualties. Now, what is at risk? Escalation could also destabilize the region further. Again, recalling Trump brokered 8 ceasefires in the last 7 months alone. But why all of this matters at this point of time? Because this is not just a hostage deal. It's about the future of Gaza, Palestinian rights, and whether the world can finally see an end to the cycles of conflict. Trump's tight deadline, Hamas's condition, and Netanyahu's opposition to a Palestinian state make this one of the most fragile moments in decades for the world. So what will happen first? Will the hostages be freed? Negotiations will be dragged out, or renewed violence is on the cards? Drop your thoughts below. Is this really a breakthrough or just another Hamas's bluff?
So the question whether or not this is Hamas's bluff is only rising out of the possibility in terms of how this entire peace plan now shapes up. Will Hamas actually release those hostages, or is this a bluff to only buy more time? Because remember, we are just days away from the October 7 anniversary. This is when Hamas had attacked Israel 2 years ago. It all comes down to the issue and the cause of the Palestinian statehood. And at the recently concluded UNGA, remember, there was much support galvanized not just by Western nations but also Latin American nations, also the global South, which are now calling for Palestinian statehood. Can the two-state solution even be achieved? This, as Netanyahu and his administration have been calling to annex the West Bank. And that is something which is not going to go down well, not just for Palestine, but also for the Arab nations, many of whom have played a very significant role as far as these negotiations are concerned. I break down the challenges for you.
This is a big day. We'll see how it all turns out. We have to get the final word down in concrete. Very importantly, I look forward to having the hostages come home.
Hamas has agreed to release all the remaining Israeli hostages. Remember, it is believed that 48 hostages are still being held in the Palestinian territory by Hamas, only 20 of whom are presumably alive. This, as the armed group has responded to the US peace proposal with a statement on Friday, agreeing to release all Israeli prisoners, both living and dead. The caveat being that the proposal ensures that the field conditions for the exchange are met. But as they say, the devil lies in the details. Hamas wants further negotiations on a number of key points outlined in the US peace plan, especially regarding the future of Gaza and the rights of Palestinians. Hamas has said they are still being discussed. What's significant is that the armed group is willing to hand over Gaza to Palestinian technocrats, meaning Hamas would have no role in governing Gaza. But is that an indication that it wants Gaza to be administered only by Palestinians and not by Trump's proposed Board of Peace, a committee made up of qualified Palestinians and international experts, meaning supervision by a new international transition body? Clearly, Hamas doesn't want that. Do note that the Hamas announcement came hours after US President Donald Trump gave them a Sunday deadline. This to accept the peace plan or face all hell, raising the critical question: could this move be an attempt by Hamas to buy more time? And is the US now in for yet another long drawn-out negotiations? The most glaring omission by Hamas is the absence of its willingness to disarm, a key demand in Trump's 20-point Gaza peace plan. Hamas is mum on this requirement. So expect the Israeli government to now be poring over the wording of the Hamas statement. And so on expected lines, Israel is going to glean the true intent of Hamas. The Israelis will not like the last paragraph of Donald Trump's statement either, a suggestion that Hamas retains a role in negotiations over Gaza's future. This, as Trump has already called on Israel to immediately stop the bombing of Gaza, primarily for a speedy and safe evacuation of the hostages. Israel clearly has defied Trump's instructions. But there's still a huge amount of detail to be worked through. This before peace prevails in the region. The US president is well aware that this is not a done deal.
This is a big day. We'll see how it all turns out. We have to get the final word down in concrete. Very importantly, I look forward to having the hostages come home to their parents and having some of the hostages, unfortunately, you know the condition they're in, come home likewise to their parents, because their parents wanted them just as much as though that young man or young woman were alive.
Now here's the bone of contention. How will Donald Trump convince Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu and his government to agree to a two-state solution, knowing their long-standing opposition to a Palestinian state? That too at a time Israel is publicly discussing proposals to annex parts of the West Bank, with Gaza being touted as a real estate bonanza, both by Israel and Donald Trump. So here's why the West Bank matters to the two-state solution. It would become the core of an independent sovereign state of Palestine. And even though the Trump administration is not openly opposed to annexation of the West Bank, here's what may deter the US president. Even a limited annexation of the West Bank territory would drive a deeper wedge between Israel and its Arab partners. Trump's ally, the UAE, has already warned that any annexation of the West Bank would be crossing the red line, causing a direct dent to Trump's foreign policy crown from his previous administration, the Abraham Accords. An agreement that was facilitated by Donald Trump, one that ensured that Arab governments sidestepped the Palestinian issue, only to find common ground with Israel on trade and their shared rivalry with Iran. But with growing support for Palestinian statehood, not just by Arab nations, but by the wider West, that includes France and Britain, there is pressure to end the war in Gaza and give Palestine the recognition it's been fighting for at the UN too. Only if Israel relents. For now, the two-state dreams have one reality: that a peaceful coexistence for Israelis and Palestinians is anything but feasible, even if that means Israel walks the path to global isolation.